Okay, this is the concept of a PowerShell scripting lab, which then follows on to show how a PowerShell script can be incorporated into a graphical user interface. So in part one of this laboratory, we're getting students to start a Windows 2008 virtual machine and then start a second Windows 2008 virtual machine, perhaps on another PC. So they create a test share folder on one of the PCs on the first virtual machine, and they share that for everyone. And then they're going to put a file into that folder, just something there to see that that we can copy over to a remote PC. And there we're going to transfer the contents of that shared folder to another PC. And put that into a folder called something like C:\my name as an example, and we're going to create a script called copy_share.ps1. Now we're giving them the contents of that script. So here is the script itself. Okay, we don't tell them what the script. We tell them what the script does, but not how it works for the moment. So obviously, once they've put that script into a file, into a text file with a .ps1 extension, they need to find out the IP address of their machine, and they also need to find out the IP address of the second virtual machine. Then obviously they need to edit the file and with the relevant IP addresses. And then they need to run the PowerShell script command, and go to the remote PC and see whether the contents of the temporary folder from the shared folder from the first virtual machine has been copied to the temporary folder on the second virtual machine. And then that's the first part of the lab. As a research task, we're asking students to find out how the PowerShell script actually works. So looking at each line, how does it actually work? Now in part two of the laboratory, we're giving students a PowerShell graphical user interface which has been developed, a simple interface developed in Visual C#. So again, we're going to get the students to open up the Visual C# program and then run the program, and it's going to perform the same function. It's going to copy the contents of a shared folder to a remote folder with a different name on the remote virtual machine. So that's fine. Then in part 3 we're going to get students we're going to give them an incomplete part of the program is incomplete. This is the remote install. This is to install a program on the remote virtual machine. So we want students now to modify the program so that it correctly will transfer run a remote program on the virtual machine, the remote virtual machine. So they have to then find out how the program works, how they can modify this part of the program to perform that function, and then obviously they will run the program and check to see whether it actually works. And we then offer them further reading at the end of the lab, and we tell them there's plenty of scope for a final year project. And then that's the contents of this laboratory, in which we've demonstrated that how to use a PowerShell script, and then how that PowerShell script can be incorporated in a graphical user interface, and giving the students the opportunity to find out how they could modify that for their own ends. It's easier to do that than to just get the students to develop it from scratch. If we give them the code, they can modify it and then change it for their own purposes.